Hey everybody, it's Paul from Restore Life Ministries. It's been a while. I just wanted to come to you. I feel an urgency on something I just want to share, and I like processing things, and I feel like a lot of it is not kind of this urgency kind of stuff, but I do feel like this has some urgency behind it. Hard to explain that, but definitely feeling that. I was thinking about the Israelites. I've been talking to God about well, he's been talking to me really about him as deliverer. Him. What does it mean for him to deliver? And I've been pondering that over and over again. And usually, God will kind of give me something to start me on, and then it'll lead me down a thread. And next thing I know, there's kind of a tapestry going on what he wants to talk to me about. And I definitely feel like that with this topic. And so, most of us, almost everybody knows the story of Israel and Egypt and the Exodus. Been many movies done about it, animation and so forth. And in that story, God delivers Israel out of Egypt. There's so much we can talk about in this. I mean, there's just so much we can unpack. But I felt like God really wanted me to kind of talk on a few things. And the first thing was really around that he is a covenantal God, that when he makes promises, like he doesn't just do them willy-nilly. When he makes a promise, you can literally take it to the bank. I mean, it's something that he is going to do. And so, like for some of you, you might have received certain kind of promises from God that you are weary and carrying. Take heart. God doesn't make a promise that he's not going to fulfill. So God comes to the Israelites and he says, I've covenanted myself to you. Like, this is something I'm doing where I am promising myself to you, and I'm going to bring it to fulfillment. And so he comes to them and he delivers them out of Egypt. The other thing he is doing there is he's really triumphing over the gods of Egypt. He's doing many, many things, but these are two things I really felt like he was wanting me to point out. The second thing is that he was triumphant over the gods of Egypt. He was saying that there is nothing and no one like him. And I think that's so true. Like, there is nothing like God. There's no one like him. But in that, and we talk about deliverance, and there's kind of like that charismatic Pentecostal kind of view of it. And I'm not putting that down at all. Where we can tend to think of, that happening as an event, like a one time for all. But even in, what I've noticed in a lot of these things is that even when God moves in such a incredible way, and I've seen God do things that blows my mind, there is always a process around it. It's not done in a vacuum, right? So there's process even in those big things. So yes, keep expecting God to do big things, but also do process with him. He is really, really, really good at process. And he wants to do process with you because it's really about the relationship. It's really about that heart on heart connection with God. And in the delivering, I'm saying it's a process, it's big. And we see that really in this story of the Exodus. But there's a yielding that needs to happen in deliverance. Like, we need to yield ourselves to God as deliverer. And for some people, that's gonna take some time to get there because they're not quite sure, they don't quite trust. But as they start opening up, and I think there's something to say. There's something to say also about safe spaces in that too. I definitely feel like that. But there has to be a yielding of oneself to God being deliverer. We have to yield to him, give ourselves to him, open ourselves to him, yield. And then God delivers them and he takes them into the wilderness and the desert, which is the complete opposite of the place I would think you would lead a people who's been in bondage and slavery. But it's in that place. And listen, like there's a lot of you that are probably, well, all of us have gone through hard, dry places, right? But there's going to be some that are listening to this that are currently in that dry, hard place. And I just want to say, like, the dry, hard places is where so much happens. And for whatever reason, I think because it's hard and it's challenging, like ministries don't tend to like to talk about that place. I think it is because it's challenging, but we shouldn't be afraid of it because one, the Lord's in it. Like he himself is in that process with us. Secondly, he is teaching us to trust and subsist on him. If you look at that Exodus story in the wilderness, in the desert, that's exactly what he was doing. And there's this weird thing that happens as we get delivered from enslavement and bondage, where we have to be weaned off of that enslavement and bondage. And you might be scratching your head like, what are you even talking about? But you look at the Israelites, they were saying like, can't you take us back to Egypt? It would be better. Like, how many times did they say that? It would be better for us to go back to Egypt. What is that? But if you work with people in ministry at all for any length of time, you will see that. You'll see people want to go back because there is a comfort in that. And I think part of it is kind of like a security, and it's a false security for sure. But there's like a security, a familiarity, and a comfort in that previous place. And I also want to say in this part, like the enemy, when he comes to give you whatever it is that is enslaving you, he will come again and again, and he will offer it to you. It will always come with a snare. Like that bondage will always lead to more enslavement and bondage. It is not a deal. It is not a deal for you. It is a bait and switch. It is a hook. And that hook is going to take you to places you don't want to go. All right. So there is that weaning off of that weaning process where we're weaned out of that and we learn, I can't trust in whatever this is that the enemy's telling. It's a counterfeit. And it really is. Like God has my best in mind in saying this. It's not to constrict me or to say like, you can't have this. It's like parenting, right? Like there's certain boundaries and things where we can move. There's infinite freedom within those bounds, but there's definite boundaries, right? And he's got a father's heart for us. So he's weaning us out of those places of bondage and enslavement. And he's helping us to trust him and to subsist on him because we are going to need that for where we're going. Really important to understand. Yield to him and yield to that process in those dry, hard places because most of the really profound things, I hate to tell you this, happen in those places, those hard places. My gosh, your faith grows, your trust grows. And if you can learn to really stay and dwell in the presence of God in there, my goodness, man, I'm just getting chills thinking about that. It's amazing what God can do. And that's the process he wants to take you through. Now the Israelites go to the promised land, and you might think it's all skating easy free now. Nope. Because they've heard a report of giants in the land and, those heavy fortifications, huge fortifications, right? And they're losing heart. Seems like everything's coming against them, and they're going to the promised land, a place flowing with milk and honey. And there's that beautiful passage in Joshua chapter 3. If you haven't read that, Joshua chapter 3, especially, it's really, really awesome to read that passage if you're going through some kind of transition or if you're in the middle of moving like this. Read that for yourself. It's awesome. Be strong and courageous. Because what God is saying is that he's going with us in that. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I talked previously about urgency in this. And I think this is why, because I keep hearing the words, I've shared this with people. I keep hearing the words, it is time. Like, it is time. And I see like God extending his hand in partnership. And I think this is like a broad kind of invitation to his bride to say, like, I want to invite you into places of destiny in this time, in this season. And one that should really excite us. But in that, there's also this thing where, just like the Israelites, they're looking at these giants and these fortifications and they're going, there's no way. If we only rely on our natural senses in this period, I mean, just look around at the world. It's gone cuckoo. It's crazy. It's insane. And if we are only using our natural senses and not the eyes of faith and not listening with our spiritual ears, man, we are going to miss so much of what is happening right now. And listen, I'm not speaking to like a particular thing here. I'm certainly not speaking to like political. What I'm saying is there is a spiritual thing that is happening right now where God is inviting a wide range of people into destiny type stuff. And you probably, most likely, are feeling like the Israelites, where you're like, there is no possible way that I can do XYZ, whatever it is that God is calling you into. And I would say, great, because somebody is with you that can do all of those things. And trust me, I'm seeing people stepping into things, and it's impossible. Like, it is insane what God is doing. But again, if those people were just using their natural senses, they would have done none of it. I'm telling you, they're going through this process. So God is extending this, saying, it's time. Partner with me in this period. And I know there are those that are going to watch this video where God has been coming to you for years around something that he wants to partner with you into. And you probably, I can almost assure that you have had big resistance to it. And it could be well-meaning people. It could be the enemy in your ear about who you're not. Or that, hey, you did X, Y, and Z, bringing up your past. Oh, what it is. But I can assure you're having huge resistance to that piece of destiny. And you look ahead and you say, there is absolutely no way I can do that. I just want to say to you, yes, you can, because God can. And he goes with you in this. He's extending his hand in partnership. He is literally saying it's time. So when I say this, I don't have a specific thing in mind. I'm not thinking like there's tons of people out there who God is calling into ministry, these like strict ministry titles. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I feel like God is calling people to, in places of creativity, expanding their relational tent. It could be ministry. I'm not saying it's not. It could literally run the gamut on what God is calling you into. Maybe it's a new business. You feel God saying yes. I'm saying I really feel like God is saying now is the time, and that he is extending his hand in partnership. If you are feeling that, I would say act on it. All right. I hope that has blessed you, and I'll talk to you really soon.